Hey, all you awesome nerds, it's Redneck West with the Nerdy Old Men Podcast, and today we're talking action. And as always, I've got the old bald man with me. It's my buddy Chad.
That's right. I've got the need for more nerdy podcasts. That's right.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. And the best action time, in my opinion, was the 1980s. And a good old expert that we always bring in when we talk about this kind of thing is Perfect Pat Peebley.
Great to be back, guys. I love the 80s. Of course, I'm the slightly older nerd in this, so I was around and cognizant, I guess, for a little bit more of the 80s and the late 70s than you guys were.
Yeah, a little, but we still have, we kind of all have the same sort of mentality about this kind of stuff. I mean,
absolutely.
The 80s was awesome.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I still go back and watch some of that stuff now. I mean, so I thought, when we were thinking about a show idea for this one, we were kicking around, 80s action stars, TV, movie, and we thought, man, we'll just hodgepodge all that crap in together, and let's talk about everything that we like about the 1980s that exploded.
Action,
like
baby.
Literally, like stuff blowing up. So that's kind of.
You couldn't close a car door in a show without an explosion, I believe.
No, yeah, I think so. Let's pose a question here, and we'll start with Perfect Pat. How about an action TV show from the 1980s that it just pops in your head that you think was like the greatest, or at least one that you really enjoyed?
Knight Rider.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Knight Rider. Everybody wanted that freaking Firebird, right? It's a Firebird, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Oh gosh, that was one of those shows that, as a kid, it had everything. I mean, you had, I know people nowadays probably don't understand how cool David Hasselhoff was in the 80s.
Don't hassle the Hoff, baby.
Yeah, don't. You had the super cool, I don't want to call him a secret agent because he wasn't a secret agent. He was working for the Foundation for Law and Government. And he had this amazing tricked out car that could do literally anything that needed to be done.
Right. Pat, why was that your, or at least the thing that popped into your head about that?
It excuse me. It encapsulated everything great about the 80s. You had the cool guy in the leather members only jacket.
Yes.
You had the fast supercar.
That's right.
That was kind of a smartass.
Yes.
And William Daniels was an absolutely
He was perfect.
Great voice for it.
Oh, yeah.
You had the attractive female technician.
Oh,
right.
Bonnie.
And, I mean, you would occasionally get the really awesome villain. Either you had Carr, which was the evil kid.
Right.
Then you had the evil
Goliath.
Michael Knight that drove Goliath.
Yes.
Which I was
the
upset
evil
that
twin
didn't
in the
have
80s.
personality.
Yes. Yeah. That's another one of those things. Is like in the 80s, what were the biggest concerns in the 80s? Evil twins, quicksand, and chlorine gas.
Well, that or somebody sneaking up behind you and like doing the Judy chop on the back of the neck.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And just you instantly passed out because there was no defense for it.
Yeah, but I mean, now, did Knight Rider not remind you, or vice versa, of Spy Hunter, the video game? To me, it
Yes.
did. It reminded me an
absolutely.
awful lot of yeah,
Especially with the truck, the mobile command
Oh, yeah,
center,
yeah.
I guess.
You know,
He would drive into the truck.
Back then, my mom had a Rally Sport Camaro, and it had something about the front of it. It had like this little gap for air, for the air intake or whatever. But I always wanted to try to figure out how to put a light in there to make it go back and forth like KITT. You know what I mean?
I remember our buddy Chris Tidwell. It was some kind of, I can't remember, it was an Oldsmobile or something in high school, and he actually put the wigwag light in the front.
That's awesome though.
I mean, he had this huge bass kicker in the back, so you'd hear him coming. But I just remember he put that on. I was like, "Why'd you do that?" I just thought it was cool.
Hey, if I had a car, if I had a black car like KITT, I would straight up do that and drive it to the Walmart. I don't even care. But like Pat said, I got to get a leather members only jacket.
We may have one of those somewhere. I don't know.
you know.
Let me go check the closet. I'll be right back.
Yeah. You wore it yesterday. We know how that
Well,
is.
yeah, probably.
But what about you, Wes? When you're thinking about TV from the '80s, man?
Well, this one I believe started in the '70s and carried over. But I mean, I was a huge fan of the Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh yeah, the Dukes.
The Duke Boys. I mean, the show was called the Dukes of Hazzard, but yeah, Duke Boys were coming on.
Yes, sir.
And
and everybody, thought that you could jump your car.
well, yeah,
Or drive it on two wheels.
yeah, or stand on the hood while hold her steady as you're going down this bumpy dirt road. Wearing cowboy boots.
That's right.
But for me, just growing up in a small town in the middle of nowhere, you had the fast car. You had Bo and Luke Duke could have been, it could have been us. Just the good old boys just running around town.
There was no way we were that cool, though. No way.
Well, yeah, we were cooler. Bo and Luke didn't play Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, that's true. They would have been cooler if they would.
But like Pat said, you've got everything kind of. You got you had great characters that like Boss Hogg was like the ultimate villain because he was running stuff and he was sleazy and he'd always kind of get off. They'd stop him, but he'd always get off. He wouldn't. They never would catch him. He'd be back next week. But it was something I could relate to, and then you always wanted to try to jump the creek.
And the best thing about Boss Hogg is he always had the speed trap set up to catch the major country artist.
Of course,
force him to play at the Boar's Nest.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And speaking of, I don't know if any of you guys been to Covington, Georgia, where they filmed it.
No.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. Pat, is it not cool? We went back there
really
this past summer mainly because my daughter was a big Vampire Diaries fan, so we went down there to check all that out. But I didn't even realize that that's where that and In the Heat of the Night were filmed as well. So
another one of my favorite 80s shows.
So you can get a little map and go drive around. We went out to the Boar's Nest, which conveniently now is a Southern Baptist church.
Yes.
It is. It really, no joke, it is. And you can't blink or you'll zip right past it. But we also found that it shows the place where they did the big jump inside the town, and then when they did the big dirt jump in the intro. But that jump in the town, you could jump it now. The way that it's the way the hill is, it's just fascinating to be able to see that kind of stuff down there. But it's neat. Redneck West should definitely go down there and check that out.
And what was funny was when they actually moved production to California, and you can see a difference in the show. Like the first few episodes I actually filmed down there, and the look is different, the feel is different, and then when they go out to California, it was fun, but it gets it becomes a little bit more silly.
Yeah.
The first episodes the early episodes were a little more serious, but and I think everybody will agree your first love was Daisy Duke. I mean,
yeah.
And we'll just leave it at that.
That show was I actually named the first dog I ever had Roscoe. Because of that show, I had the lunchbox. Matter of fact, over in one of my,
I still have mine. Yes.
Yeah, well, I don't have the box.
One?
I don't have the box itself. We have to make some kind of deal or something because I've got the thermos sitting over here in one of my cabinets in my man cave, but I don't have the box.
Gosh.
And you're right. That show is, of course, the show is entirely wouldn't make it today. But back then, man. I mean, really, it wasn't an unwholesome. I don't know if that's a real word, but by God, it is now because it's our podcast. But unwholesome type of show, it wasn't. And really, none of those.
If you go back and you watch it, the Dukes were always friends with everybody in town, and there were black folks in it. There were Asian folks in it.
Yeah,
and they always helped the Dukes. There was always something. If you were in Hazard County and you were stuck near the Duke farm, they were going to invite you to supper.
And the bad guys weren't really bad. They were goofy more than anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They weren't always super
greedy
bad.
and goofy.
Yeah, yeah. And it made every young boy want to drive that Challenger, right? Drive the or is it a Charger? Which one?
It's
Challenger. Yeah, Challenger.
It's a Charger.
Oh, is it a Charger? Okay,
Dodge
somebody's
Charger.
gonna correct us on this, I'm sure. But to drive one of those cars and shoot
1977 Dodge Charger.
and shoot flaming arrows because everybody.
Well,
can
they
do
Yeah,
were
it.
and let me tell you, that was the
Dynamite
most
on 'em.
disappointing thing to me about the Dukes is that whole dynamite arrow thing. I guess if you're a really good archer, but if you're just some random, not that I had dynamite, but we tried to simulate it with M80s. It doesn't
awesome.
work.
It doesn't
and
work.
you get kind of dangerous. Don't try this at home.
Yes.
But we got a case of dynamite in the back. We're going to jump the creek.
We're gonna do it. Yeah, that was a great show. I love that. I don't think anybody
Okay,
there's nobody that did.
What about you, Chad? I think I know the answer to this.
Well,
but
of
what
course.
encapsulates the 80 action show for
Could there be any other answer?
you?
Magnum
We're going to
PI.
Hawaii.
Magnum PI. Yes, sir. I watched it
Just
all the
finished
time.
rewatching
What-
Mag.
It's outstanding. All I wanted to do was drive a Ferrari 308 and have a best friend that flew a helicopter. Wes, why couldn't you fly a freaking helicopter, dude?
Well, I'm working on it. There was that one time, and they said no.
No, I love that show, man. And when I went back and watched it, and Pat, you said you just rewatched it. I went back.
Just during the plague, I picked Magnum back up.
It's a great show. Well, you know what? I was literally thinking about this just a while back, that we all get kind of down with all of this stuff and all of the political things and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, you know what, man, I just need to watch some Magnum because I think it'll make me feel good. And it really is, though, because other than the first couple of seasons where he killed a dude every single show, which seems like it might bring him into a little bit of legal problem being a private investigator and blasting people, but still.
That's what Rick was for.
That's what, right. But the
Rick
fact
was in
that,
the mob, people. If you didn't know this.
right. The stuff, it's just a really good show, man. I just love it. And, there's that episode where they're doing the bed race. Remember that crap where they're pushing the bed down the street, Pat? And
Oh yeah,
that's just so funny. And the way he's trying to sneak around, and he's kind of in and out of the Navy. And I just really love that show.
Well, I
plus
just
it's
love the fact-
picturesque, and it's a beautiful scenery and things. That's just a cool show.
I love the fact that it was at its heart, it was a buddy show.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, because Rick and TC were helicopter crew together,
Right.
and I don't know how many times they pulled Magnum's butt out of that'd always be a flashback, and he's some kind of firefight. Here
Oh,
comes
and
TC.
it was one of the first shows that ever portrayed Vietnam veterans in a positive light.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. You're absolutely right. And it's just cool, and it's another one of those
even
shows.
With Higgins, he got to be a buddy with.
Oh,
Magnum,
yeah,
even though there was the back and forth in the whole Robin Masters mystery.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but there's a common theme with some of these things where these 80s shows, the vehicle became a character as well. Just like Magnum, that Ferrari 308.
Well, even the helicopter.
Hardcastle and McCormick.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
there's another good show.
Yeah. And you were talking, Dukes of Hazzard, where the General Lee was a character in the show, in essence. So that, those are, and that's a thing that I think is very much 1980s, because I don't know.
And I'll tell you something about Magnum that I guess I just didn't remember or whatever. I'm watching the first season. I'm like, where's the music?
Oh.
Well, what's with this theme song? This isn't Magnum.
Huh. No, I didn't know.
Because the first season has a different theme song.
Oh, does it really?
Uh-huh.
I didn't know.
And it's not good. It's not catchy like the one you just played.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, Chad, you're talking about vehicles being, characters in the show. That made me think of Airwolf.
Airwolf
yes,
and Blue
sir.
Thunder.
And Blue Thunder, yes. There we go.
Good old Airwolf, right? Yeah. Again, every kid in the 80s wanted to either fly an F-14, drive a Ferrari, or fly this helicopter.
Well, and that it was so wild because the amount of technology that supposedly was in this vehicle
Right.
was incredible.
Flying Knight Rider with machine guns.
Pretty much, and it's funny because with a top speed over Mach 1, rivaling the fastest jets. And they would change. I guess it's where you have different writers, and they would forget what had been established in earlier episodes, because I think at some point in the show, like Airwolf is able to reach altitudes of like 100,000 feet.
Yeah, and
I'm like, we're going into space here, guys.
physics literally doesn't work. But in the 1980s, none of that mattered.
It didn't matter. I mean, I've got turbo on my helicopter. I'm going to make it go faster.
It's just awesome.
I don't know if you can do that, but okay. But it was another. You had Stringfellow Hawk, who was a Vietnam vet, and he was looking for his brother. And there's this giant organization that may or may not be nameless, and it just had really cool characters. Dominic Santini was the father figure to Stringfellow's, his tortured hero, and then you've got Archangel, which is still one of the coolest looks.
Right.
White suit, white car, white helicopter, pretty girl, and that black eye patch.
Right.
Alex Cord was awesome.
There's
way back in the day, when it was the Great Southern Brewing Company, the now Downtown Grilling Brewery.
Yes.
They had a mixed drink called the Borgnine Blaster because of Airwolf.
That's awesome.
That is awesome, man.
And the joke was it came with a giant eyebrow in it.
Oh, that's funny. That's hilarious. How'd they pull that off? What was that?
It was a gummy worm starting out, and then you didn't get it.
But that's funny, though. Gummy worm eyebrow. But, Wes, I'm surprised that you haven't mentioned Mr. T's show.
Oh, the 18.
Yes. Again, where there was another vehicle as a character.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because you saw that black GMC van with the red stripe. Yes. Which, apparently, the cops never noticed that sitting around anywhere. Beyond the, we got the military police are looking for these guys. They can't find them because they've gone to the Los Angeles underground. But they drive around in the same vehicle all the time. Now, I don't want to tell the MPs how to do their job or anything, but
that's right.
But it had one of my favorite TV characters of all time, which was H.M. Murdoch, Howling Mad Murdoch. And I actually got to meet Dwight Schultz.
Oh yeah,
at Fanboy, and he was super nice, and I've listened to a lot of his podcast stuff, and I was talking to him about it, and I said, well, I've listened to the podcast. He goes, everything is true. He said all the story. I didn't even finish, and he was like, everything is true. But he was really nice and really fun to talk to, and he hadn't done a lot of conventions, and he was really impressed with Fanboy and just the fans coming out, and would like to get the other two remaining members, would like to get to meet them and stuff. But it was I mean, I just loved Murdoch because he was crazy. You didn't know what he was going to do, and you always wondered if he was sane and playing crazy, or if he was crazy playing sane, playing crazy.
Right.
I mean, and then you've got you've got helicopters, you've got tanks, you've got cool cars, you've got guns, you've got explosions. I mean, it's like quite possibly a perfect TV show.
Yeah, it's
and you had to knock Mr. T out every week.
Just to get anywhere.
Yes,
because he was afraid of flying, and in the show they never explained why he was afraid of flying.
But it's like how many concussions did they give this guy in the process?
Oh, they doped him. They're always like drugging him with something, the knockout gas or something. And,
I mean, there's something about Mr. T, man, and it's so funny. Is I'm a toy collector too, and they came out with this WWE and Masters of the Universe crossover here back a year or so
Oh, yes.
ago. And I've got all of them over here, and I opened them up because I'm kind of an open the package kind of guy, and I got them all in the ring over here on one of my counters, and they have Mr. T. And he's actually a crossover from Fisto and I can't remember, Jitsu or something. So he's got he's got a golden fist and a golden karate chop hand, and all these chains hanging off of him. And he's one of my favorite figures, and I think he's awesome though. But Mr. T is a hell of a character.
I pity the fool. I pity him.
It actually says on the package, his card says Mr. T, the pitier of fools.
It doesn't say anything about his gymnastic background, does it?
No, I don't think so, no.
That was a wonderful cartoon, Mr. T and the T-Force.
What's funny is, how do we get Mr. T to relate to kids? Let's make him do gymnastics.
That's a perfect idea.
He's going to drive a bus with a bunch of kids on it and a dog with a mohawk.
Absolutely.
Who wouldn't?
That's true. That's true. What other kind of shows can we think about, or anything else? 80s action stuff blowing up, people kung fu fighting, all that good stuff.
What do you got there, Pat? I know there's something.
Pat's the expert, so we know.
Oh my gosh, 80s action shows. I mean, look how many great animated shows we had in the 80s that were action. And then you go in the same vein as Magnum PI, you've got one of my personal favorites, Simon and Simon.
I love that show.
Okay, Simon and Simon, all right.
Miami Vice.
Oh,
yes, it's
yes.
a cop show and a kind of an early police procedural, but
Yes, sir.
that's actually my theme song on WLEF when I do sports.
Awesome. Yes, it is. You're absolutely right. But you need the white suit, Pat. I'd love to see you.
Oh, I absolutely do. If I can find one of those in short and still kind of fat.
Hang on a second.
Hey, you know, that's Magnum PI is the great influencer of my football fashion.
Do what now? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely
You'll
right.
never see me not in a Hawaiian shirt at a football game.
You're absolutely right. Anytime.
Unless I'm wearing my spandex hamburger shirt. It's as awful as it sounds.
It's amazing, Pat.
I
is
figured
perfect.
the Hawaiian shirt was due to your love for Weird Al.
I kind of both, but you know, I never went around fancying myself as I'm Weird Al as much as I love him. Right. I've ran around fancying myself as Magnum PI.
Well, doesn't everybody? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Well, Chad, that's why you grew the stash when you were a police officer.
Well, it's necessary. It's necessary. Come on. I mean, geez. Speaking of, how about chips? Now, it did start in '77, but it lasted to '83. But I mean, yeah, that was a show where, like every other episode, a tanker truck of chlorine gas wrecked and endangered all of Los Angeles. Yes. You know what I mean?
You figured they'd stop letting those come through town.
Yeah, it's like, it just seems like such a bad idea. But that was, these two guys are super cool, and again, it was one of those where there was dramatics and action, but it wasn't dark.
Well,
it didn't take itself too serious.
Yeah, it didn't take itself too serious.
It was a buddy show, though.
Yeah.
It was a buddy show because it was the whole thing was the interaction between John and Ponch and the rest of the police departments that they worked out of.
And it makes me think about something to get a little philosophical here.
Oh, Lord.
Is that, guys that are our age, we grew up watching these type of shows. And these type of shows were filled with heroic people doing heroic things, but they did it in teams, and they were buddies, and they busted each other's balls all the time, and they jaw-jacked with each other, and then they went out and did what they needed to do, and they come back and they hung out and they chilled, and and had a beer or a Dr. Pepper or some crap, you know what I mean? And nowadays, that same stuff, that mentality doesn't exist. It's not the same, or at least from what I can see. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right. Pat, he's got all these friends he's had for 30 years, and me and Wes have known each other. What, Wes? 30 years? You know,
you're right at
yeah. And I think that it was some of that mentality that we, believe it or not, I know it sounds weird, that we learned from watching these type of shows.
Well, you know, that makes me think like when we get together on our game night and we're playing D&D, and that's what we do. We will run our mouths. You know, we'll slam each other. But now, if somebody was to mess with one of our group,
oh, you're done for.
You've got all of us to deal with.
The A-team's coming.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I know Pat. I've played with you before, and it was the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Except, you know, you all had colorful names for all the miniatures that were on the table.
We're colorful people.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of it, and you're right. And in when we brought my brother, who's 13 years younger than us, in to play D&D, I think it took him just a little while to adjust to the culture change.
A little bit.
Yeah. Now, he's in good now because he'll bust your chops when he's sitting beside you at the table and stuff a little bit too.
And that's the whole reason I do it.
He kind of come around, but I think, again, not to go down the big rabbit hole, but to come back to these type of shows is kind of, I think, helped mold sort of our mentality as far as how we deal with the brotherhood type kind of thing.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And I think that's the case. But
and it's always fun to have that bond, you know, with your brothers, you know, not by blood,
brother from a different mother. Yeah.
Yeah. And it always, I know we've talked about it in other episodes, but that was the big reason we played. You know, we enjoyed the game, but it was the camaraderie.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. But, you know, not only did we have TV shows, we had some pretty awesome action movies back then, too.
Oh, yeah.
Pat, kick us off, brother.
It's one of those. It's funny. It's fun. There's action. The Cannonball Run.
Oh, Cannonball Run.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that.
It's literally, you get a little bit of everything. You get the Kung Fu fight scene.
Yes, sir.
Because they have Jackie Chan in the movie. You've got all the great interaction between Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise, Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. You got Terry Bradshaw in it.
If you bring Terry in, it's going to be funny.
And it's a cross country race that gets a little slapstick at times, and you can go back. Hal Needham was a great lighthearted action director because he gave us Smokey and the Bandit.
Right. Yeah, and that, I mean, that's again that kind of does the brotherhood thing as well, though, right? As they're traveling in the race, yeah.
And Hal Needham it's critically panned, but I think if done right, it would have been a great G.I. Joe movie called Megaforce.
Okay, I don't think I've ever seen that.
It lost $15 million at the box office in like 1982. It's one of those so bad it's good. If you watch it just for the action, it's awesome.
Right.
If you listen to any of the dialogue whatsoever, you may drink bleach.
I love it.
So, folks, there's a bleach warning on this movie. So
you're right. Wes, what about you, buddy?
Oh well, I mean, if we're talking movies, and I love this movie because I love the character.
And I doubt many people have seen it, but it's the first Punisher movie that stars Dolph Lundgren.
Okay.
Oh, that's a wonderful pre-MCU Marvel movie.
It is great because it's very true to the character. I mean, and it's super low budget compared to even what I think the Punisher with Thomas Jane had like a $30 million budget, and this is nowhere near it. But the story is really good, what they try to do, because it's got the mob, it's got the Yakuza, you've got the origin
Dolph
story
Lundgren.
I mean, and he's perfect. I mean, I love the Netflix series with Berthal, but he's like 5'8", and Dolph is like, I don't know, 6'6", something like that.
Right, but
I mean, that presence.
yeah,
I mean,
but
he's just,
Dolph is another one of those quintessential 1980s action stars.
oh, absolutely.
You know,
And
it-
he was He-Man for crying out loud.
Yeah, and a god off. Don't speak of that. All
There's
right.
a very funny, not movie related story that goes with that.
Okay.
Several years ago, somebody, and I don't know, I guess they didn't know who lived there. Somebody broke into Dolph Lundgren's house while he was home.
Oops.
Oh, good Lord.
He still has the sword from He-Man, which is an awful representation of the sword. But apparently, when that guy picks up that sword and runs at you, you run.
Oh God! If he picked up a
that
toothbrush and
burglar
run
sure
at
did.
you, you know. Oh my God! The He-Man movie. That's
And
horrible.
he's also like a scientist. A lot of people don't realize this. He's got like a degree in what is it, like?
Chemical engineering,
Yeah,
maybe?
chemical engineering and bioengineering, something like that. I mean, dude's like really smart.
Well, I'll tell you one of my favorite movies with Dolph Lundgren in it from the '80s is Rocky IV.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I watched it a while back, man.
Ivan Drago.
I mean, dude, if you're not a patriotic guy, watch freaking Rocky IV. You know what I'm saying? But what I loved about that is it really manifested, showed that how hardcore the Cold War really was, and how,
break you.
yeah, well, and where the United States and the Soviet Union would go to combat without sending lead downrange, and they did it in the sports arenas. They did it at the Olympics, and in this movie they did.
And they did
boxing.
it in 80s action films.
Absolutely.
The Russians are always the bad guys in an 80s action
If
movie.
he dies, he dies. You know. But I mean, that's a David and Goliath movie. And again, just like all these 80s movies, it's the underdog, even though Rocky was already a champion, right? But it's the underdog taking on the man, you know. And dude, that's one of my favorite movies.
And for the Rocky movies, Eye of the Tiger gets all the press, all the playtime.
Right.
Burning Hearts from Rocky IV by Survivor is
Yes.
a better song than Eye of the
It
Tiger.
is.
Yes,
It is.
yes. But that's it's one of those films that you watch and you're like, man, I think I could box, right? Give me some gloves, man. I'm gonna do this. You know, I mean, how many dudes bloodied their knuckles beating on something after they watched Rocky? I mean, I'm sure I did, but but yeah, it's one of those things. Again, back those films manifest this inside of you. You're like, man, yeah, I can do this. That guy did it. I can too.
Well, you look at the characters. You want to stay with Stallone. You go back to Rambo.
Yeah.
And just the struggles that veterans had. They really didn't at the time know what PTSD was.
Right.
And that whole movie, whether you realize it or not, is him dealing with that. Because he's talking about, I can't hold a job at a car wash.
That was back when it was still shell shock.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But he was a great action movie. I mean, and this is one I liked what they tried to do. And Pat, I know you'll back me up because you're a big comic book guy, but I loved the fact that they were casting him as Judge Dredd, and I hated the fact that they casted him as Judge Dredd.
Oh, yeah.
Because he would not leave his helmet on. I was like,
No.
come on, Sly.
No,
Leave your
and
helmet on.
listen, they really hit on it later when they got Carl Urban to be Judge Dredd.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, I wish he was an 80s action star. I'm glad he's, not, but could you imagine? I mean, right now he's become king of the nerds. But
Yeah.
that Judge Dredd movie was the actual name was Dredd, but that was much better than the Judge Dredd movie that had Stallone. But I liked what they tried to do because I love comic book movies.
Well,
Who would have guessed?
Yeah, obviously. But I mean, look, if we're talking about that 80s kind of action and stuff, I mean, can you not? I mean, you have to think about that theme song and about that guy, Schwarzenegger, in Terminator, right?
Every time I think
Right,
of
and
Arnie, though,
that's one of those where initially the big star is the bad guy.
yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Terminator to me back then, because I mean, all of us three are sci-fi kind of guys and stuff, right? But that's an action film, and I didn't want to get too much down into the sci-fi stuff. But this is an action film too, and
it's also a horror movie.
Absolutely, because that was scary to me because I was thinking, sci-fi fantasy minded. I'm thinking in advance. I'm like, this shit could actually happen, where our technology advances so much that we screw ourselves over, Skynet and stuff, and the first one, the second one I liked too, but the first one was my favorite.
Oh, absolutely.
And
then it just drops off, a cliff.
The second one was really your more traditional, straight up action movie.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
But Arnie is the hero in that movie.
Exactly.
In the first one, he's the villain.
Right.
But he's the star of the movie.
But I guess that's kind of the reason I like that one so much, because, Wes, I tend to always like the villains. I don't know why, but I always do.
It's like, why, that's the whole reason that Empire Strikes Back is everybody's favorite Star Wars movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me,
the villains win.
I mean, like,
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Right. Like
that's why the Joker did $1 billion at the box office.
Yeah, because everybody really wants to be bad, I guess, is the theme, right? But I mean, we can't talk about 80s action without talking about Schwarzenegger, though. I mean,
he's always going to be Conan to me, though. I mean, that's the first thing I think of is either that or Dutch.
Right, and
Predator.
Right, now some of these movies are 90s movies, and I tend to get them mixed up sometimes. So I'm sure somebody will comment.
There's a very thin line between 80s and 90s action.
Right. But something that was on, I guess it was, I can't remember. It was a while back, and it was on TV, and I was clicking through, and it was one of those nights where it was a bad news night, and I was like, man, I can't even watch the news. I got to find something else. And the Goonies was on, and you talking about bringing yourself out of a funk? The freaking Goonies, man, 1985. My son, who's 11, came in and sat down. He goes, "What are you watching?" I just sit here and watch this, and he got sucked in like that. And he sit there and he watched the whole thing, and he's like, "This is cool." I'm like, "You don't see these kind of movies these days. This is cool." Again, it was a group of kids all buddied up together that, they got together because of this, this outside force, and they went on this adventure. And
right. I mean, the only thing you got like that today is Stranger Things.
Right. And I think that's why it's popular with a lot of young people, because I think we need that, man. You
absolutely need that feel-good action. It was like, we need the dark ending. No, we don't.
No.
Let the good guys win. That's kind of the whole point.
Right. It lets you know that the good guys can win, and that it's okay to work with other people. And I think that, again, philosophically, I think that that's something that a lot of young people are lacking. They're very isolated. But for us, it was like, I got to do something, but I need my buddy to help me.
Another movie in that same vein, that's the very rare white Bengal tiger that was released later, was Super 8. Was a very Goonies-like film.
Yes, it was.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, I remember that. But give us a synopsis on that, Pat.
Super 8. 80s, kids, amateur filmmakers. And I know we were all amateur filmmakers at one point because we did a bunch of stuff. I know you all did the Highlander stuff.
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about.
An alien life form is wound up in their hometown. The evil government comes in. It's kind of like a semi-dark E.T.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Which is another, the kids got to band together and save the gentle alien from the evil empire of Atari, who's going to make the worst video game of all time.
That's right. And then they buried it in the desert, right?
Yeah. There's a documentary where they go dig them up.
I was fixing to say, they went looking, trying to find all of them.
Again, we got to go off on a bit of a tangent, but something else that failed at E.T. Have you ever seen the E.T. light-up finger toy?
Had one.
It's very phallic. We'll leave it
at that.
But now, Chad, you got me thinking, like, the kind of the buddy movie, and with action and Pat talking about Cannonball Run and a lot of comedy. Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh yeah.
It's got everything, man. There's guns, there's pretty girls, there's monsters, there's kung fu, there's magic. I mean,
Yep. Yeah, I looked it up because I was going to hammer you because I couldn't remember when it had come out. 1986. Damn, you win.
86.
Yep.
Yep.
But yeah, that's another good one.
Karate Kid. Karate Kid to me was
Which
an action
obviously,
film.
is having the great resurgence now.
Dude, I just started watching Cobra Kai. I'm into the second season. I can't stop watching it. It's really freaking good.
I haven't sat
And
down
that's
watched
that's
it.
another whole show you could do is 80s, early 90s martial arts action films.
Yeah, and we could do that. But Karate Kid, the first one, I really liked. Because again, it's the same. You could almost, the plots of all these 80s films are almost the same. You got the underdog against this big power. And the underdog comes up and trains and gets ready and fights their way to victory with really awesome, 80s music in the background.
And it breaks the mold where this time the good guy's the lone wolf and it's the evil.
Yeah, you're talking about the TV show? Or
The Karate Kid.
Oh, Karate Kid, yes, absolutely.
Where
yeah.
Cobra Kai is, the evil organization, and Daniel-san it's just him and Miyagi against the world, basically.
Right. And Wes, if you haven't watched that the Cobra Kai show on Netflix, I personally really love it. And the fact that, and Pat, you've seen it, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I watched it on YouTube Red. I signed up for YouTube Red to watch it.
Oh, okay. Well,
You're the only person I know that's done that.
where they flipped the script, as they say. Where to me, watching it, or at least where I am in the show right now, Johnny's the good guy, and Daniel's kind of the bad guy. And and I liked that aspect of it. That's really neat.
And it's the classic 80s wrestling storyline, and you'll see what I mean when you finish.
Right.
When you get current on it.
Right, yeah.
On just how the story evolves.
Yeah. So it's cool, but back in the day, that Karate Kid movie I thought was awesome. That's one of those things where it's like I want to take martial arts, but at the time my parents couldn't do that for me. But I was like, I want to take this would be awesome. So instead, you're outside kicking and fighting,
Yeah. Okay. Now since you said martial arts and we've talked about it a little bit, but I mean you've got to throw Jackie Chan.
Right, which is one of the reasons I think Cannonball Run is so good.
Yeah, I mean because not only did he do his own stunts, but he's got a charisma and a personality that you can't help but like him.
Right.
I mean, all those Hong Kong opera guys are like that to an extent. That's the thing. Jackie Chan's part of a troupe out of Hong Kong. I can't remember any of the other guys' names now, but Chow Yun Fat was one of them.
I just pulled up his IMDb page. The dude has been in everything. And Jackie Chan, I mean, from holy crap.
Well, he worked with Bruce Lee. He was
1962, up. But if we're talking in the 80s, there's some crazy stuff, and probably some of this is foreign stuff. But there's Cannonball Run, Battle Creek Brawl, Dragon Lord. I mean, it's Cannonball Run too.
Yeah.
Police Story, Naughty Boys, Armor of God, Police Story 2. And these are all things in the 80s. Plus, we know all the stuff he's done more modern. But Heart of the Dragon. But yeah, you're right. For 80s action, I mean, that guy's like a forever action guy. So yeah,
he was making a movie like every week or something. He was making a different movie.
Oh yeah, it's like he's got his acting credits on IMDb. He's got 141, and it says he's got one post-production, one pre-production, and 3 announced films right now. So yeah, he's making some.
Jackie Chan still kicking,
literally. I see what you did there. But well, what else are we thinking about movies from that era?
I kind of want to save this for later, but I'm going to throw Chuck Norris in the mix.
Okay.
That's a good choice.
I mean,
Delta Force is one of the all-time greats.
And then Lone Wolf McQuade. I love the fact that later on, after everyone has kind of gotten to the the end of their action movie career, they made the Expendables, and it was like, hey, let's just put all of our buddies in this movie, and then they I don't know, they're on like the 12th one or something now, but the one with Chuck Norris, Stallone's, they're pinned down and out of ammo, and they're closing in, and just all of a sudden, just blah, da, 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 and everybody's dead, and like Chuck Norris, or he comes walking out, and they throw in the Chuck Norris facts. He goes, I thought you were dead, and he's like, yeah, not so much, and got. He goes, didn't you get bit by a rattlesnake? He goes, yeah, and after 3 days, the snake died.
Yeah.
And then he goes, why? He goes, you want to join up with us? He goes, nah, man, it's not really my thing. He goes, yeah, I heard you're a bit of a lone wolf, and the tongue-in-cheek stuff that they did. But,
Lone Wolf McQuaid, 1983. He had something here I didn't know about. He had a TV series, Chuck Norris Karate Commandos.
One of the great 80s cartoons.
Okay, all right.
And lines.
He had an action figure line, yeah.
Yeah, 1986 is what it says. I did not know that.
And there's a Karate Kid animated series.
Well, we will go down that path on another episode, because 80s cartoons, we could go on for days about that kind of stuff.
That's true.
Sure.
That's why I didn't mention any.
Yeah. The only reason I mentioned is because I didn't realize that was it right there. But
well, it's kind of hard to talk about action stars in the 80s and not throw Chuck in there. And there's a lot that we've left out, and I'm sure people in the comments, let us know.
Please do.
Who's your favorite action star? What's your favorite action movie, TV show?
Yeah.
Let us know that. We love the interaction with the fans and listeners.
Yeah, because we will revisit this. Yeah, we can always revisit this kind of stuff.
And since we've talked about some of these other 80s action movies, this one, it's kind of obscure. Firefox.
Oh, okay.
Clint Eastwood goes to Russia and steals the super jet.
Okay, all right.
I'd forgotten about that one, Pat. That's another one. And I mean,
Oh, that makes me think. Red Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
1984. Again, versus the big
Kids
red
versus the Russians.
Again. Well, it was Chinese in this one, wasn't it? No, it was Russian. Yeah,
I think the new one's
It was
Chinese,
Russia and North Korea.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, but again, you're absolutely right. It's
or maybe Cuba.
It's the kids versus the big bad guy. And
it's another one that kind of breaks away and gets really dark compared to a lot of its 80s counterparts.
That is true. It is the Soviets that they were that they were combating.
Yeah, because they dropped the big old Hind gunship helicopter on them at one point.
Yes, yeah, and it was like the most scariest thing in the world. When in actuality, apparently, the Afghanis took care of that helicopter relatively easily. But back in the day, again, but yeah, 1984 on Red Dawn, and you're right, that was a little darker. That's a PG-13 film in comparison to some other ones. But yeah, that's you're right, Wes. Back to it, kids versus guy, and
I think that's something that everybody can relate to, because you can put yourself in the kid's shoes where it's like an insurmountable obstacle that you have to overcome.
Yeah,
and the only way you can do it is teamwork.
Exactly right, and we talked about that. And again, philosophy on this, or I don't know, but the thing is, like, back then, we believed, and Pat, I know you agree, we believe because of these films and the way that we thought, our mentality as youth, that we can take on anything. We can do it. We'll just get together.
Oh, absolutely.
We get together and hammer it out. And now if something happens bad to kids, they got to get a coloring book and sit in the corner and sing Kumbaya and pretend it's not happening. But for us, it was like, put some duct tape on that
there
stick.
Was no safe
and let's go, man. Put some duct tape on the stick.
There was no safe space for us.
No, we had to create that. And we were ready to go. And
our safe space was the distance from the end of your fist to the beginning of their face. That was our safe space.
Yeah, that's right. And we learned how to deal with problems from Mr. Miyagi and freaking Magnum PI and all that
we
kind of
beat
stuff,
our
man.
buddies up for fun because that's what friends do.
And I think that does come down to the heroes, quote unquote, the heroes that we watched back then. And man, it'd be really nice if that was the way things were now. But then I like modern films. Don't get me wrong. The MCU and that kind of stuff that that's come out. I think those have they kind of hark back to that sort of mentality a little bit.
Well, if everybody would get the political correctness out, because in the 80s we were not politically correct.
No, man, fend for yourself, bro.
Yeah,
I mean, how many 80s films involve somebody flushing their dude's head down the toilet? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was.
I mean, there's at least 2 Revenge of the Nerds movies based on that.
Yeah, the whole film, the whole film. But again, it was these guys that just got together and fought back against the adversity, and hell, that's the ticket, man. That's the ticket, man. I'm fired up. I got to go watch old 80s movies and TV shows now. I mean, I'll have to do like Pat and go back and rewatch Magnum PI.
It's on Amazon Prime.
I'm on
I
it.
was about to
I'm
say,
on it.
Amazon Prime, Netflix, get ready, because
Yes.
there's going to be an influx.
And it's all because of the Nerdy Old Men podcast in this
Absolutely.
episode number 19. But we always love having Pat on. And
Yeah, thanks for being on the show, buddy. I mean, we appreciate that.
I'm almost always available, especially with notice, and I love being on it. I love to talk about nerd stuff.
Yeah, and he's a great guy to have come on. And again, but Pat, since you're our special guest host, we'll hit you as always again with the Nerdy Old Men rapid fire question session.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hit me with your best shot.
Yes, here we go, and I'll start off this one today, Wes, since you did the intro.
Alrighty.
Pat, one vehicle that you get to drive forever from a 1980s TV show or movie.
Kit. You don't even have to drive it.
Yeah,
You just drive me forever.
yes, I love it. I love it.
Pat gets chauffeured around a lot anyways. Now, there you
Exactly.
go. Okay,
I
Pat.
do not like to drive.
I love it.
Okay, Pat. If you could have one 80s TV or movie weapon, what would it be?
Proton pack.
He ain't afraid no ghosts.
Brilliant. We didn't even talk about the Ghostbusters, but that's awesome.
That's how much good stuff in the 80s was out there. As we made it through this whole show, and we're just now getting to Ghostbusters on the rapid fire question.
Yeah, absolutely right. I don't care for 80s or movies that have been remade from the 80s, but if there's one that hadn't been done that you'd like to see redone, what would it be?
Oh, now this one's a tough one. Because I'm like you, I don't really necessarily like remakes. And it's one I've already mentioned, and you could never make it because of we're weak as a society now. Cannonball Run.
Yeah.
I would love to see some of today's comedians
Oh, that would be
that I
hilarious,
actually love,
man.
like Will Ferrell.
God,
and-
that would be
and
so
John
good,
Cena
dude.
in a Cannonball
Cena.
Run.
Yeah, you put freaking Cena in it, no one can see him. But no, that's awesome. I love that. That's a great idea, dude. That's a perfect answer.
God.
But it's got to be this is one of those that needs to be a scene by scene remake. And you just
okay.
leave Jackie Chan in as his character.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. All right, Wes, go ahead, buddy. You got one more. Finish this home.
Okay, Pat. If you could make an action movie and the final scene, what kind of explosion are you doing? Are you?
A scanner's like explosion where the guy's head explodes.
Oh, yeah. Only Pat could answer that question because I was about to go, Wes, that's the worst question ever. But no.
I'm thinking like, how you're walking off after you've taken everything out and there's the big explosion that doesn't knock you down. It's like it's blowing up like 10 feet behind you. You're prone on the ground. It's like, that last shot of the movie. It's like,
yeah,
what are you?
Pat's film, everybody's head explodes at the end of the film. I love it. That's
Scanners
awesome.
is an underrated horror film.
All right, I'll
of
give
that
you
era.
that. I'll give you that.
And see that could be a show topic we bring you back for, Pat. It's underrated horror films.
Oh, yeah.
And we still got to do a wrestling show with Pat.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean,
Like I said, you give me 24 hours notice, and hey, if we do a wrestling show, since we talked about it before we went on the air, let's do a wrestling show. Let's bring Skylar Sage on.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll get him.
Big shout out to the wise man of the local wrestling, Skylar Sage.
All right, yeah, we'll get you on, man, and then and Pat can help us wrangle that kind of stuff in because, again, we're
And
80s
you
kids,
know, if
so
we,
we
if
love
we
their
want to
fighting.
do one, I'm not exactly sure how to track him down. Not that he has to be local East Tennessee. If we want to do an 80s wrestling show, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat lives in Maryville.
There we go. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Hey, man, no, this is good stuff, and it's got me reminiscing. I've got a little bit of nostalgia going on here.
Chad's going to go in the kitchen there and crack open a couple eggs and drink them down and go run about 5 miles.
I don't know about that. But what I might actually do is go see if I can find me a Hawaiian shirt and get in my SUV and pretend that it's a Ferrari and I'll head on down the road.
I used to drive my grandmother nuts drinking raw eggs. You're going to get sick.
No, I'm going to be badass.
And I wasn't working out or anything at the time. I was just drinking raw eggs.
That's perfect, though. It'll work. That's how Pat got to be perfect. But ladies and
Pat,
I'm
gentlemen,
pretty sure that's how Pat got to be 300 pounds.
Pat, we want to thank you for being on the show, man.
I
This
appreciate
is
y'all
awesome, a lot
having
of
me.
fun.
Like I said, anytime, just give me 24 hours-ish notice.
yeah, man.
Not that this time is usually a busy time of day for me.
But no, that's good, man. And we got a bunch of cool stuff coming up. So guys out there, you listeners and fans, we really appreciate all your support. We're really getting a bunch of downloads right now, which is awesome because we want to reach out to everybody and we want to keep this kind of things alive and show that the old guys that are kind of nerdy and geeky are pretty awesome too. And this is a good place to talk about those things. And when you listen to all of our episodes, we added a little thing at the end of our ending credits music. There's a little thing talking about how you can get a hold of T-shirts and things like that from us, or swag and merch. There's a little clip about that, talking about how to do that. But visit our Buzzsprout page that you can find on our Facebook page, and go to the upper right-hand corner. And
We have buttons.
We have buttons. All those little buttons right there will take you to all of the social media accounts for our podcast, as well as a little donation page if you want to throw some change our way to help support the show and our recordings.
It would be greatly appreciated.
And we appreciate that. So I think that it's time to go to do some karate in the garage.
Yeehaw.